All right, so welcome to my webinar, Freedom from Cancer. Freedom from Cancer, that sounds like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me, because most people never think of that, but we're gonna really talk about how that is absolutely possible. So my name is Ruben Guzman, I'm your host, and it is my honor and my privilege to spend this time with you and share with you some very, very important information, because cancer is a scary topic. It really is. It's something that scares a lot of us. Some of us have dealt with it personally. Some of us have dealt with a family member or a loved one. Some of us have dealt with friends that we've had in our life with cancer. So there's lots of different things that we've dealt with. So, you know, we're going to explore this. It's very, very, very important topic for us. So I want to start off by sharing my personal experience with cancer. So my first introduction to cancer was when I was conducting autopsies. So before I went to medical school, I worked as a pathologist assistant at the Los Robles Regional Medical Center in Thousand Oaks in Southern California. And it was a wonderful experience. And I got to work with some wonderful, amazing pathologists. Dr. Sorrel Glover was the senior pathologist, and he was my mentor. He really was. He really knew a lot about pathology, and he knew the anatomy of the body so well. He had been a surgeon for 7 years and then became a pathologist. And at this point, he was a pathologist for almost 20 years. So he had tons of wisdom and knowledge that I gleaned from him every single day. It was wonderful to work with him. And so I got to see cancer up close and personal by conducting autopsies, because we did autopsies on people, most of the time, people who had died from complications of chronic disease. So heart disease, aneurysms, cancer, diabetes complications, all kinds of things. So we saw a lot, even Alzheimer's. So we got to see all kinds of things, and it was quite an education. It really was. So one of my distinct duties was to be able to dissect the intestinal tract of every single person. So I would take the entire intestinal tract out of the body cavity, put it in a deep wash basin, take out my surgical scissors, and then I would have to split open and wash out the entire intestinal tract. Now, let me tell you, it's a nasty job. And if you weren't ready for it, it would pretty much knock you on your butt. But it was pretty amazing to see and feel. Of course, I had gloves on, I was gowned up and everything else, but I got to see the inside of the intestinal tract. Now, the third most common cancer is actually colon cancer. And there's many, many things that you can see inside the intestinal tract. So I got to see lots of it. I got to see polyps, I got to see diverticuli, I got to see cancers, and a lot of it. And I'm going to share some of that with you a little bit later so you can see what it actually looks like. And it was quite an education to be able to not only see it, but actually even feel it and feel what that was like on the inside. It was quite an experience. I got to see what it looked like when people died from complications of cancers and even rare cancers. I'll never forget the one person that we had an autopsy on, that this person had died from metastatic squamous cell carcinoma. And it was quite a gruesome sight, because basically the cancer cells had proliferated into every part of that person's body, every part. That person basically suffocated from squamous cells in every part of the body. So it was rather gruesome to see, and I got to see a lot of that. My second introduction to cancer was when I started actually working with people with cancer. And I've helped people with cancer or precancerous indications, and I've helped people when they've had abnormal pap smears. I've helped people when they've had high PSAs and prostate cancer, bladder cancer, and even right now I'm working with somebody with pancreatic cancer. So I've been able to help people to completely change their lifestyle and to make a profound difference in the quality of their life and really extend their life with high quality. And it's been wonderful to be able to do that. So I'm really excited to be able to share a lot of information with you today. Very, very important. Most of the medical community, and this is one of the things that I learned in medical school and even afterwards, most of the medical community is trained to be able to treat cancer with only three things: chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. And that's the typical approach. And in fact, there are some states in the United States that if you're a physician and you diagnose cancer, you only have those three options. If you try to educate or empower a patient to change their lifestyle and do other things or seek alternative therapies, you could potentially lose your license. That's a daunting thing for a physician. So it's important that we look at the facts that there are other options. And I'm a part of lifestyle medicine, so I'm going to share about that in a second here. And we look at all kinds of things. So let's go to the PowerPoint. I've got lots of good information. I want to tell you that I've got all these slides. I'm going to send you an email with all the slides, the link to the recording. I'm going to send you tons and tons of resources. I used to be a university professor, so guess what? I love giving homework. So you're going to get that too. So we want to make sure that you're fully set up today. No gimmicks, no scams, no sales. No, this is the real deal. I believe in making the world a better place. I am passionate about eliminating chronic disease from the face of the planet. And I believe in the power of paying it forward. I've got 4 children myself, and I want them to make the world a better place for them. So I think it's imperative for all of us as adults to really make the world a better place. And cancer doesn't have to be. It really doesn't have to be. And we can actually learn about how to actually prevent it. We can reverse it, and we can actually treat it. So let's start off by using the chat window while I set up. So use the chat window, if you will, and type in where you're from. And if you're new to being in one of my webinars or seminars, please do that. I'd love to just know that you're new. And then in addition, what has been your experience with cancer? What has it been personal, a family member, a friend, a coworker? What's been your experience? Or are you just curious? Because a lot of us have had experiences with cancer. All right, so go ahead and type that into the chat window so I can see that. And I'm going to get us set up for the PowerPoint. So go ahead and do that while I'm moving things around. All right, type. Go ahead and do that. Give me just a second. All right, so let's see here. And I just got to do my clicks here and there. And then click, and then click, and then click. Okay, and then let's see here. PowerPoint, click, and then click. All right, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so let's see. Let me set up the chat window so I can see it. Put it over here. Okay. All right, very good. Okay, let's see here. Okay, thank you for sharing. All right, and then let's see here. Now, here's what I'm going to request also. So for the course of this webinar, my request is that if you have a question, please type it and put it in the chat window. That way, I will make sure to address it at the end of my presentation. It's difficult for me to go back and forth between the chat window and the presentation because I am a tunnel vision kind of person. So I stay very focused. And so it's very important for me to stay on task. So I've got a lot of material. So I'm going to go through that fairly quickly, but I definitely want to address every single one of your questions. Please keep the chat window to your questions. All right, because it's hard for me to sift out if you guys go back and forth with each other, I get lost. All right, so that would be very, very helpful to me. So that's my request. All right, so now let's see here. What else do I need to do? Oh, I need to check this one thing, participants. And I'll put this over here. Okay, good. All right, so really, really great. Thank you again for being here. So freedom from cancer. My name, Ruben J. Guzman. MPH does not stand for the speed that I drive my car, okay? So that stands for Masters in Public Health. And I got that degree from UCLA back in 1988. And I was so excited to get that degree. I loved my program. I specialized in behavioral sciences, which is an advanced psychology degree, and health promotion and health education. Loved it. And when I got done, I had a very important decision to make. Do I or do I not go back to UC Davis School of Medicine to complete my training to become a physician? I'd spent 3 years in medical school at UC Davis, and my independent research is what led me into the field of public health. So at that point, I realized in 1988 that I was passionate about promoting health and preventing disease, and I was no longer interested in treating disease. So I made a bold decision to not go back to medical school and to study lifestyle medicine on my own. But I was ahead of my time. There was nothing called lifestyle medicine back then. But in 2016, I went to a conference on nutrition and healthcare, and I discovered that there is now a new branch of the American Medical Association. It's the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Yes, it is. So it's an evidence-based approach to prevent, reverse, and treat chronic disease using lifestyle measures such as nutrition, physical activity, emotional well-being, alcohol and tobacco reduction, healthy relationships, hydration, and sleep. And guess what? We can do a better job than with medications. And it's extraordinary. And I was so excited to hear about this because this is what I have passionately believed in for such a long time. So I signed up, became a member, went to my first lifestyle medicine conference in October 2017 in Tucson, Arizona. And at that conference, they announced the opening of a board certification for physicians, MDs and DOs, but also for professionals, PhDs, and those with a master's in a health-related field. That's me. I couldn't help myself. I signed up and I studied for a year. And at the October 2018 Lifestyle Medicine Conference in Indianapolis, after the conference, I sat for the exam and I passed the exam. So I'm one of just a few. There's very, very few of us. In fact, my certificate has number 81 on it. So there's very few of us board certified lifestyle medicine professionals trained and certified to empower you to prevent, reverse, and treat chronic disease. And it's awesome. It's just so awesome. I am also a member of the Institute of Coaching at McLean Hospital and Harvard. And I love that as well because we embrace lifestyle medicine as part of the coaching process. So I get to live into this quote that Thomas Edison said well over 100 years ago, that the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. He said this over 100 years ago, and it still makes sense. So that's what I am. I'm one of those new kinds of doctors of the future, and I love it. I also want to let you know that I have absolutely zero, zilch, nada, no conflicts of interest whatsoever. No products, no gimmicks, no schemes, no scams, none of that. I don't do any of that. I don't believe in it. So that what I do is I provide education. I do this for free. It's my passion to do these seminars and webinars. I do this because I'm committed to making a difference on the planet. And that's what I do. So I love doing that. What I do professionally, I wear two hats. I'm a lifestyle medicine professional. I do individual coaching. I do group coaching. I do all kinds of different things. I do lifestyle medicine in the workplace. I'm also an executive and business performance coach, and I train CEOs in the areas of leadership and in health and communication. So I do that, and I've been doing that for a long time now. So it's wonderful what I get to do. And this is my passion. I believe that Virgil was correct when he said this well over 2,000 years ago, that the greatest wealth that any of us can have truly is our health, because without it, we don't have much, do we? We really don't. So here's the framework of what we're going to cover for today. So we're going to cover a lot of things. I'm going to move fairly quickly, but If you've got questions, please put them in the chat window. That's a great place to type those in. So I'm going to talk about the statistics and some of the epidemiology, the pattern of cancer that we see, especially in the United States. And we see it in other places of the world as well. And then we'll talk about the framework or the context for health. That's very important because when we understand this as a foundation, it starts to make sense as to why cancer actually exists. And then what causes most cancer. So we're going to understand that mechanism, and we're going to look at the major culprits that are there that really contribute to cancer formation and promotion. And then we'll talk about the foods that promote health, because you need to know that. I'm going to cover two major areas today. We're going to talk about diet and foods because that's really important. I'll share with you the research around that as well. But then the other area that I want to talk about today, which is really important, and it's a major part of the work that I do with my clients, and that is the emotional consideration when it comes to cancer. So we'll talk about that as well. And then we'll finish up talking about how you can make the rest of your life the best of your life and really have a successful lifestyle change in your life. Because it's one thing to have information, but how do we actually put it into place? Knowledge is not power. It's the application of knowledge that gives us power. So let's get started by looking at a lot of different things. And I also want to let you know, I do not in any way, shape, or form claim to be some all-knowing expert with a big ego. Okay, that's not me. All right, I'm a student. I believe in being a student. I always have been. I always will be. And in fact, I'm still a work in progress. All right, so very much so. So the thing about it is that I have lots of information to share, and I have lots of teachers. One of my teachers has some words of wisdom to share with you today. I will invoke his spirit here. You must unlearn what you have learned. So I'm hoping you're willing to have an open mind, as Yoda suggests. Okay, I know this dates me, but that's okay. So if we look at some of the statistics, let's start there. What we see in the United States, heart disease, cancer, and stroke account for more than half of all the deaths each year in the United States, more than half. It's the big piece of the pie. And it's expensive, and it's attributed to many factors, including obesity, hypertension, and stroke and heart attack. A lot of people, diabetes, a lot of people, chronic disease, 40% of our American population. So for those of us who are really in the mix of being able to try to help people with their health, you'll never be out of business in this country because we've got a lot of people who are sick and ill. They need our help. In 2016, there was an estimated 15.5 million cancer survivors in the United States. The number of cancer survivors is expected to increase to 20.3 million in just the next 5 years. Approximately 38.4% of men and women, that's more than a third, will be diagnosed with cancer at some point during their lifetimes. And this is based from the National Cancer Institute in 2018. Now, what we've seen in the data is very interesting to look at, because when we look at the charts, this is trends and death rates from 1930 through 2012. So some people might say, well, we see that male cancer death rates have peaked about 1990 and then started to drop off, and then female cancer death rates they started to go down a little bit more. This is true as far as death rates. But when we look at the absolute numbers in terms of the population, how much we see, this is what we're looking at. So this is 2020 right here. And what we're seeing is that every age group, less than 50, 50 to 64, 65 to 74, 75 to 84, and 85 and up, every age group is seeing increases in the prevalence of cancer by age group in the US population. So we're still seeing an increase, lots of it. When we look at female estimated new cases, this is based on 2016 from the American Cancer Society, number one amongst women is breast cancer. That's number one. Number two is lung and bronchus cancer. Number three, colorectal cancer. And then there's all the rest. Lots of different kinds of cancers. And then in males, what we see number one on the list is prostate cancer. And then number 2, lung and bronchus cancer, and then colorectal cancer. So, and then there's all the rest. So there's lots of different types of cancers. But as Dr. Dean Ornish says, all chronic disease is the same disease. It just has different faces, and it's all expensive. The thing about cancer, according to a recent study, this is out of the American Journal of Medicine. So after tracking 9.5 million cancer patients from 2000 to 2012, 42% of new cancer patients lose all of their life savings in 2 years because of treatment. Gosh, the average amount of cancer a cancer patient lost was $92,000. 62% of all cancer patients are in debt due to treatment. 40 to 85% have to quit working during treatment as well. This is devastating. And this is why there's been such a call by some leaders to really be able to create a universal healthcare system that we see in every other industrialized country on the entire planet. So it's really costly. It's very, very costly. In addition, we have to look. When we look at life expectancy in the United States in red, we haven't been doing so great. Our life expectancy has actually been starting to become very stagnant, whereas all the other industrialized countries, their life expectancy continues to climb. In fact, in the United States, you want to see what the comparison is with all these other countries. This is the most recent data as of 2017. Life expectancy in the United States in red, and look at all the other countries with better life expectancies. Now, if you moved here from one of those other countries, bad move. All right, bad move. So there's so many other countries. And by the way, all these other countries, pretty much all these other countries have much better healthcare systems than we have here in the United States. So it's something to be looking at. Now, when we look at the causes of death, heart disease and cancer definitely account for half, and stroke, you put that in there as well. So cancer is still number 2 as far as causes of death in the United States. Now, there is still one major cause of death that's not listed here. The research was done by Johns Hopkins, and what they showed is that the 3rd leading cause of death right after cancer is medical error. Medical error. Yes, people die because of medical error. Now, I can attest to this. I was a hospital administrator at a Kaiser hospital in South Sacramento, and one of my departments was the Department of Risk Management. Every single month, we would go through files where there were medical errors that were made, and we have to review them to see if there was a potential risk for litigation. So I can tell you this happens. It absolutely does. Hospitals are a dangerous place to go, and medical error definitely occurs. Now, if we look at the pattern of chronic disease, it's very interesting. One of my mentors is Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who wrote a great book called The China Study. Now, he looked at the pattern of chronic disease in China, and he was able to see that in rural China, compared to the metropolitan areas of China, the rural areas had significantly less rates of chronic disease, whereas in the metropolitan areas, it was significantly higher. So he started to do a tremendous amount of research around that. I was inspired to actually look at the data here in the United States. I said, we've got data on this. I know we do, because I had served with the Sacramento County Public Health Advisory Commission. So I knew we sent the data into the CDC. So I went hunting and I looked around, and lo and behold, I found the graphs of the charts and the maps. So the map of the mortality due to cardiovascular disease by county in the United States. And what we see is that the southeast portion of the United States has the highest geographical concentration of mortality due to cardiovascular disease. Now, if we look at cancer, number 2, what we see is a very similar picture. Interesting, isn't it? So the southeast portion of the United States, this whole area, this whole block, all right, that whole area has the highest rate of mortality due to cancer. And if we look at Diabetes, we also see a very similar picture. All right, very similar. And if we look at obesity, because this is part of my research that I was doing when I was in medical school, I was looking at how does obesity relate to chronic disease mortality? And so I started to show back then even was that obesity definitely relates. And no kidding, when we look geographically, we see that picture in the southeast portion of the United States. So it's easy to see. Since that time, we have done research, and what we show is that there is definitely a crude relationship between mortality and the BMI, the body mass index. So the more overweight somebody is, definitely the higher the risk. Obesity is not okay for health for a variety of different reasons. There's two major types of fats that we have. The one fat that most people are familiar with is the fat underneath their skin. So that's what we call the subcutaneous fat. So everybody pinches their arms and their wings, right? They're flapping, the wings flapping in the wind. So the thing is, that's subcutaneous fat. But that's only one type of fat. Now that particular type of fat produces a lot of estrogens. And we've come to see in the research how those estrogens is definitely related with cancer. Absolutely. But the other type of fat that is also a problem is the intra-abdominal fat. This is the fat around our abdominal cavity, our abdominal organs, and all our thoracic area, and even in the heart and the lung area. So we even see that. And so this type of fat produces what we call inflammatory cytokines, which is absolutely a contributing factor for inflammation, which fosters the development of cancer as well. And we see this in the research. I mean, abdominal fat-driven inflammation is involved in many diseases, including endometrial cancer, ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, polycystic ovarian syndrome, all kinds of things. So there's lots of things that it's definitely associated with. When we look at the mortality and the life expectancy of the 10 states in the United States that have the lowest life expectancy, this chart shocked me. So the 10 states with the lowest life expectancy in the United States in red happen to be all geographically next to each other. Wow. Now, if you're a statistician, you realize this is statistically significant. And in case you forgot your geography, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. There will be a quiz at the end. All right, so the thing is, this is a very strong relationship here. We know something's going on. In lifestyle medicine, we say that chronic disease is directly related to lifestyle. So what are some of the lifestyle factors that we can look at? Well, one of the lifestyle factors is nutrition. And one of the things that we see that definitely contributes to an unhealthy diet is fried foods and fast foods. Well, I found this chart, and the consumption of Kentucky Fried Chicken, one of the exports of Kentucky, all right, in the state. So here's the map of the consumption of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and notice the geographical region of the highest concentration. No kidding, it's in that same area. What about physical activity, but more importantly, physical inactivity? So when we look at it, this is also from the CDC, what we see is that the greatest areas of physical inactivity happens to be in the southeast portion of the United States. All right, what about frequent mental distress? Because we know stress is a major factor in cancer and many other chronic diseases. But stress, what's the pattern of stress in the United States? Wow, here we see it. All right, so stress we see predominantly in the southeast portion of the United States and Fresno. All right, and then if we look at sleep deprivation, that's another major factor because we say shorter sleep equals a shorter life. So sleep is also a major factor, so it's a lifestyle habit. So nobody's sleeping in the southeast portion of the United States, all right? Nobody, especially in Georgia and Kentucky, Alabama, oh my gosh. All right, and nobody's sleeping in Las Vegas either. So the thing is, we say that there are many things that keep us sick, and lifestyle is a major factor in this. Dr. Stephen Loam is a friend of mine, and he is a board-certified cardiologist and lifestyle medicine physician. And he says that there are 5 major factors that keep us as Americans sick. Number one, we've got so much stress. And because of this stress, our brain is wired to be able to do three things. When we're in constant stress, we seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. So that's what we do when we're under constant stress. Another factor that keeps us sick is our family patterns of behavior. We mistakenly think that cancer and other chronic diseases are genetic and they're genetically caused, and therefore we're doomed to get them. But that's not the case. What is the cause is the consistency of the family behaviors in that family. And the dietary and lifestyle factors in that family contribute to the production of that disease. Another factor that keeps us sick is the food industry. Yeah, the food industry, because if you really think about it and you go out there and you look at what food is available, do you think the food industry really is putting your health as their number one priority? I don't think so. Another factor that keeps us sick is our government. And we've seen this past year. Oh my goodness. In 2020, we've seen that because they put the economy first and they don't really put public health, they don't put health measures at the forefront. And we don't really take care of our people. We don't do that. And we have a system that is absolutely all about being able to make a lot more money, and we don't take care of our people. Another factor that keeps us sick is the medical system itself. Now, I can say this because I've been inside the belly of the beast. And when I really looked at how the medical training and that occurs for people in medical school, it's very easy to see. When I took my board exam when I was in medical school, we had about 60 questions plus that were related to pharmacology. We had only one question on nutrition. That was it. One question. So the emphasis is not on how do we promote health and prevent disease. The emphasis is on how do we treat and manage disease. That's the whole system. That's how it works. So lifestyle medicine, which I'm so excited to be a part of, lifestyle medicine, as Dr. Wayne Dysinger, one of the founders of lifestyle medicine, says, it's the foundation of healthcare because 80% of healthcare is chronic disease. In this country, we see that right now. And 80% of chronic disease is lifestyle. So if the disease is caused by lifestyle, the foundation ought to be a lifestyle treatment. Doesn't that make sense? Makes sense to me, and really should be something that we're trying to move towards, and we're trying to see if we can make a difference. So for us to be able to address chronic disease, what we need to be able to do is empower people to build resilience, to be stronger, more fit, more capable. And in psychology, we define resilience as the capacity to prepare for disruptions, recover from shocks and stresses, because we've all got them, and adapt and grow from a disruptive experience. And right now we need this more than ever, especially with this past year with dealing with COVID. So we need so much to be able to build resilience. So how do we do that? We need to look at the context for our health. What is the foundation and the framework for us to be healthy? It starts off by looking at this quote by my dear professor, Dr. Michael Kalitsky. So he said this when I was in undergraduate, and I was taking a class called Comparative Anatomy and Physiology. And he said, remember this, that all of life is in one of two states at any given moment. Either it is surviving or it is thriving, and that's all there is. And he said it like that, which shocked me. And I raised my hand. I said, are you saying it's just one or the other, Dr. Kalitsky? And he says, yes, Ruben, that's exactly what I just said. Oh, gosh. I raised my hand again. I said, Dr. Kalitsky, I'm thinking there's got to be a bell-shaped distribution curve to this, because I just finished taking statistics. And he said, no, it's one or the other. I said, Dr. Kalitsky, I'm just not getting this. And he said something that he usually said to me quite often, sit with it, Ruben, you'll figure it out. Oh, goodness. Well, I sat with it, and I couldn't figure it out until 3 years later. 3 years later, I'm in my first year of medical school at UC Davis taking a class called embryology. So embryology is the study of the embryonic period of human development. So it's from the moment of conception to the point where everything is there, and now it just starts getting bigger. And after that, we call it a fetus. So this very much corresponds with the first trimester of a woman's pregnancy. So that's what happens. Now, most women remember their first trimester because it's extraordinary. All kinds of things are changing. And most fathers remember it too, because they're getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and trying to get her pickles and ice cream. So it's a wild time. And early on in our development, we all look like this, a ball of cells that you cannot tell one from the other. So this ball of cells, at this point, we call it a blastomere. But the ball of cells gets bigger and more cells start to develop. And then eventually this ball gets big enough that it starts to fold inward and it starts to form a tube of cells. This tube will become the first organ system of the body to become distinguishable and operational. Now, this is fundamental to understanding cancer and our health. It's fundamental. This tube is referred to as the neural tube. So the neural tube gives rise to what we call the limbic brain, which is the central core features of the brain. So this is your hippocampus, your amygdala, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and then it's all connected to your spinal cord. So the professor said that this is the central nervous system. And it goes in first because it is the electrical system for the entire human body. It's the first system on, and it's the last system off. It's on 24/7 for the rest of our life once it's turned on. Now, it's the electrical system that's running the show. It's running the show completely, and you have no say in the matter. It's automatic. We refer to it in science as the autonomic nervous system. Now, he said this, it's an electrical system, and just like any basic electrical system, it's got two currents. You've got a positive current, which we refer to as the parasympathetic current, or the parasympathetic branch of the central nervous system. And then we've also got a negative current, which we refer to as the sympathetic branch of the central nervous system. Now, when the positive current is on, that's the parasympathetic, we are in what we call a parasympathetic state. Now, when we're in the parasympathetic state, it's going to be on for every organ system and every cell in the body. It affects the entire human body. The negative current is the sympathetic, and when it is on, it's going to affect every organ system and every cell in the opposite way from the parasympathetic. The professor said these are polar opposite of each other, polar opposites. And then he said this, once this system is turned on, we will either operate in the parasympathetic state or the sympathetic state at any given moment. We can go back and forth between the two, but we do not operate both at the same time. That would cause a short. So it's one or the other. I got the or from Dr. Kalitsky, that we're either surviving in the sympathetic state or we are thriving in the parasympathetic state, and that's all there is. This, my friends, is fundamental for understanding cancer. This is fundamental because when we are in the sympathetic state, our body, our brain is completely reacting to stress of any kind, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual stresses of any kind will cause us to trigger the sympathetic state. And our body will be responding. It will be in the state of survival. We'll operate from a very primal state, fight, flight, freeze, or fold. We notice those. Those are very primal, but even as subtle as a perceived threat, which is the definition of a fear, that is enough to put us in the sympathetic state. What we see in the literature is clear that the common thread of all chronic disease, heart disease, cancer, fibromyalgia, osteoporosis, the list goes on, all of it is being in the state of dis-ease, far too much. Far too much. Our body is designed to be in the sympathetic state only for short bursts. Only for short bursts. We're not designed to be in chronic, persistent, ongoing sympathetic state, chronic stress. It just doesn't work well for that. So what we need to be able to do, and what lifestyle medicine fundamentally is all about, is being able to empower us not to give more medications, more treatments, more drugs, more agents, more external things. No, we need to fundamentally shift the central nervous system state from being predominantly in sympathetic to being predominantly in the parasympathetic state. You see, if we fundamentally make a central nervous system state shift, then we start to experience peace, pleasure, restoration, digestion, fun, play, and ease. Our body starts to thrive, and the most amazing thing happens. We start to heal ourselves far better than any medication could ever do. When you were young, you got scraped up and you were playing outside, and you went crying to your mother, and your mother put, you know, that mercurochrome. You remember that? That stung like crazy. You were lucky if you got the Bactine. I was so happy when Bactine came out. So the thing is, she would put that on there, and then she'd put a Band-Aid on, say, leave it alone, don't touch it. And then a couple days later, you take the Band-Aid off, and it was healed. It was healed. Amazing. It healed itself. The body has the capacity to heal itself externally and internally. We just have to give it the right environment, the right conditions, the right factors, and it will heal itself. And then when we do that, we start to live life powerfully. It's extraordinary. And that's what lifestyle medicine is all about. This is the foundation. And this is what we can do with any chronic condition, including cancer. So I say that there are 5 major elements that we have total control over that can make a total difference in how we experience the parasympathetic state. So I have a webinar on this, and I'm going to suggest that you check it out. It's the 5 secrets to living a thriving, healthy, happy life. It's on my YouTube channel, so you can check that out. So the 5 elements in a nutshell, here they are. Number 1, it's the thoughts that we think. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. All these 5 are so important when it comes to cancer. They're so important. Number 1, if we've got stinking thinking, as my old friend Zig Ziglar used to say, if we've got stinking thinking, negative, critical, cynical, skeptical thoughts in our minds, that will put us in the sympathetic state, just like that. So what we have to use is the power of positive thinking. All right, Norman Vincent Peale wrote that book. We need to really practice the power of positive thinking in our mind. It's really amazing how powerful our mind is. It really is. So we need to be able to practice that. Second are the words that we speak. You see, if we complain, if we gossip, if we're cynical, skeptical, critical, and being a naysayer, being a negator, all right, that will immediately put us in the sympathetic state. If we practice uplifting, encouraging, positive, supportive, kind words, then that will keep us in the parasympathetic state. The words of the tongue should be true, kind, and necessary. And to practice that is a lot harder than it sounds. So we need to practice what we speak, and not only what we speak, it's also the words that we listen to. In over 35 years, I have not watched the news. Not watching it. Not watching it. Number 3 are the actions that we take, because actions speak louder than words. And so what we have to be able to do is practice walking our talk. Because if we make promises to ourselves or to others, and the moment we let ourselves off the hook, we're in the sympathetic state. We know. We say, oh, I'm going to eat healthy. And the next day you go out and have ice cream. You know, you're in the sympathetic state. So we have to practice walking our talk, like no kidding. And that's living a life of integrity. Easier said than done. The 4th is the company we keep. what we've shown in the research is clear that our lives are impacted not only by the 5 people we most associate with, but also their friends and their friends of their friends. There's a book called Connected, and it's profound to really understand the research on just how impactful our relationships are. And with that being the case, we may have to make some prudent judgment calls here. I mean, we may need to do a peoplectomy or two. And it's okay, really. It doesn't mean you stop loving people, you just love them from further afar. But you build up that inner circle of 5. I had one of my friends, and when we got to this point in the seminar, he said, oh my goodness, at the age of 81, he said, oh my goodness, I need a whole new set of friends. And in the next 3 months, he actually did exactly that. He created a whole new network of friends. It was extraordinary. Today, he's 85 years old, and he is a pistol. He's amazing. He's amazing. So we have to create those relationships. And the 5th element that influences our nervous system state, and this is the shocker for most people. Most people never think that the food that we eat affects our central nervous system. You better believe it. We're going to talk more about that later. Absolutely the case. You see, everything affects our central nervous system. Everything does. And the areas of lifestyle medicine also. So all of these 5 are important when it comes to cancer. And then all of these are also important when it comes to cancer. So hydration, nutrition, physical activity, harmful substance reduction, sleep, emotional well-being and stress management, healthy relationships. It's all important. I do not have time to cover all of it today. I can't. It's too much. We would have to, I probably could do an entire course just on cancer. It would probably take me a full week to take you through. It'd be powerful to do that, but it's amazing. So today I'm going to focus on nutrition, and then I'm also going to focus on emotional well-being, because those are 2 very important factors that really make a powerful difference. Because when we look at us as human beings, when we look at how we operate, we have 4 fundamental energies. We have physical energy, which is food, exercise, sleep, and resting. We have mental energy, which is being able to focus on doing one thing at a time with no distractions, having clarity, and doing what's most important. And then we have emotional energies, how we feel, our positive emotions, engagement levels, and being valued. But we also have spiritual energy. I'm not talking about religion here. What I'm talking about is our sense of purpose, our deep values, and how our needing to matter and make a difference in the world. These energies all make a difference, because if we have stress in any of these areas, that impacts us when it comes to cancer. It absolutely does. So now the question is this: what is the cause of cancer? Now, this has been very, very interesting, because when I was in medical school, and the book on pathology, a lot of these cancers had cause unknown, cause unknown, cause unknown. And actually a fancy word, they go etiology unknown. But we actually do understand a lot more about what causes cancer today. To understand that, we have to go to the fundamental unit of the human body, and that is the cell. We have to go to the cell. So I'm not going to teach cellular physiology today, but what I want you to look at is that our cell is amazing. This is the fundamental unit of the body. And so we have a human cell, and it's got all kinds of amazing things in it, including a nucleus, which is the headquarters of the cell. And inside this nucleus is this amazing genetic material. So we have these chromosomes inside the nucleus of the cell. And if we start to look, this chromosome is composed of all this tightly wound up DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. Now, if we were to unwind all of that, it would go for miles and miles and miles and miles. It's amazing. It really is. And then when we look at the structure, what we have is this sugar phosphate backbone, but then we have these 4 nucleotide bases. Okay, so we have these 4 nucleotides: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. And this is the language. It's sort of like the computer language for the human body, the human genome. It's extraordinary how complex it is. And we've mapped it all out for the whole human body now. It's incredible. Now, what happens is that these bases have to match up precisely in the right way. All right, so cytosine matches up with guanine and thymine matches up with adenine. And then depending on the sequencing, it creates a genetic coding. And it's an incredible language. It really is. Now, what causes cancer is that every now and then the cells have to divide, or because of stress, a cell is basically under duress. And one of the things that we'll do under duress, it's going to have a safety mechanism. So the safety mechanism for a cell under duress is to replicate, create a whole new cell. And when it creates two cells, one of them is going to have a special mutation, a change in the genetic coding. And that mutation is going to allow that cell to adapt to the stress. It's going to adapt to the stress. So a mutation is being created in order to adapt and trying to survive based on the stress. Remember, when we are in the sympathetic state, our body's in the state of survival. The body's trying to survive. Every cell is trying to survive. And so now what happens? One of the survival mechanisms is replication and mutation. So for instance, one of the things that can happen is that a cell can actually mutate so that no longer does it need to have the insulin hormone to allow sugar to come into the cell. It can be fed by sugar directly. You probably have heard that before. But yeah, sugar feeds cancer, no kidding, because of that mutation. That's a mutation that occurs on certain cells. So there are three phases that occur in the development of cancer cells. All right, the first is this initiation. That first step is when a single cell undergoes a mutation that causes it to divide repeatedly. Now, normally, now we cause mutations all the time because we have stress all the time. So the thing is, we cause mutations, but normally when we have a strong immune system, our immune system can go along and kill that mutation cell. Okay, that mutated cell, it will go ahead and purge that and keep the whole system nice and clean. But if our immune system is suppressed because of stress, then these cells gain a foothold. All right, so the first step is initiation. So that's what we see, it was just one mutation, and then we start to have it divide more and more, and it stays in one area. This is what we refer to as carcinoma in situ. All right, so it's just in stage one, it's staying in the site, and then we start to get even more mutations. So this is still carcinoma in situ. This is on the skin. So this is stage one. So this is where it's just in one spot. It hasn't penetrated anything else. Now, the next stage is promotion. Now what happens is that a tumor develops and the cells within the tumor mutate. All right. And so we start to get this, and it starts to develop more and more and more into a tumor. So we start to see mutations in that. And then it starts to progress. Now we start to see progression, which is the cell mutates in such a way that allows it to invade the surrounding tissue. So we have carcinoma in situ, stage one. Now we start to see an invasive tumor. It starts to break through the area that it is in. That's when we call it stage two. Now it starts to actually reach into the lymphatic cell, the blood vessel, lymphatic vessels and the blood vessels. That's when we call it stage three. So it's penetrated into other areas where it can be transported. And then it finally lodges in other areas of the body. And that's where we start to see metastasis. And that's when we refer to it as stage four typically. All right, so those are the three major phases of the development of cancer cells. So that's what we see in this. Now, what leads, so the question is this, what's causing the cell to be in stress? We need to ask that question. What's causing the stress? So there's many things that can, but one of the most typical ways to understand this is by going back to the cell. So let's go back to how the cell produces energy, how a healthy functioning cell works. So if we look at a healthy functioning cell, what we see is that every cell needs to be able to produce energy because a cell is an energy system. So in order to produce energy, it needs to produce this molecule right here. This is referred to as ATP for short, adenosine triphosphate. Now, I don't have time to teach you biochemistry today, but I want you to know this is like amazing. ATP is what we use for everything. We use it to think, we use it to contract our muscles, we use it for everything. I mean, this is the energy currency of the body. You want to do anything, you need ATP. Now, the most optimal way to produce ATP are through these amazing little organelles in the cells that we can actually have more of. We can actually induce more mitochondria, which is an incredible thing. I get so excited about it. Don't get me started. All right, so the thing is, mitochondria, the mitochondria are amazing. So we produce more ATP through the mitochondria than anything else, and it's great. Now, for the mitochondria to work, they need oxygen, but then they need a little bit of fat, so free fatty acids, but they need this, pyruvate. Pyruvate is the substrate that is used to manufacture adenosine triphosphate. So they need this pyruvate. Well, where's this pyruvate going to come from? Well, the pyruvate is going to be half of a glucose molecule that is broken off specifically, not from raw sugar, not from refined sugar. No, it has to be from glycogen, either free glycogen or from stored glycogen. Glycogen is the human gas station. Think of it that way. It's the human gas station. So this is the gas pump right here. Now, what we have to be able to do is pump this gas into our car, and then now we can actually use it and we can burn it, and then we can create energy and we can go places and do things. It's amazing. So glycogen is the human complex carbohydrate that we must manufacture. And there are only two specific carbohydrates that human beings can use in order to produce glycogen. Now, you probably have never heard of this. Now, a lot of people say carbs are bad, carbs are bad. No, that is completely inaccurate. You need to be much more specific in your language. There are two specific carbohydrates that we must have, amylose and amylopectin. Now, I'm pretty sure you've never gone to the supermarket and seen any product with a marketing label that says high in amylose and amylopectin. No, what you see is high in protein. They try to sell you that all the time. Nobody's trying to sell you amylose and amylopectin. They should be, because that's how you get energy. The only reason you need to eat is for, number one, energy. So we need to have that. Now, here's what happens. Here's what goes wrong. In 2004, we did the research at Yale University. They developed a new technology to look inside the cell and see what was going on. And they took a group of diabetics and they looked inside those cells. And what they noticed was this, was very, very interesting, is that these cells of these diabetics lit up on this special MRI. They lit up with this intramyocellular lipid. And these scientists said, how did that get in there? That's amazing. Oh, this is shocking. Now you should be shocked too. This should have been on CNN every night ever since they found out about this. Intramyocellular lipid is a fancy word for fat. And fat is oil. Now, why this is shocking to the scientists is because a healthy cell is about 90% water. 90% water. But intramyocellular lipid is oil. Basic chemistry. I think everybody here knows this. Do oil and water mix? No, they don't, do they? They don't mix. You can do this at home. You can take a glass, pour in water and oil. Okay, where does the oil go? To the surface. It goes to the surface. Fat floats. It goes to the surface. It forms a slick on the surface. What happens out in the ocean when an oil derrick or a tanker leaks? Where does the oil go? It goes to the surface. What happens to the marine life underneath and the fish? Oh, they suffocate and they go belly up and they die. So what happens inside the cells of our body when we get too much oil inside the cell? Oh, what happens is that we start to actually experience suffocation because it forms an oil slick on the inside of the cell. We never saw this before 2004. There's an oil slick on the inside of the cell. It's just like a thin layer of saran wrap. You can look right through it, but you can't not breathe. This is an opportunity for the nucleus to say, I can't breathe, replicate, and mutate. This is one of the most common triggers of the mutation to form a cancer cell, because if there's too much fat inside the cell cannot breathe. Now it says, I'm desperate, I gotta breathe. I'm gonna find a way to breathe. And the cell will create a mutation, allowing it to actually get fed directly by sugar, not needing the insulin receptor. And that's a cancer cell. That's one of the most significant mechanisms for causing cancer. So the biggest culprit that we see, and there are many culprits, but the biggest culprit is excess fat in the American diet. We've got far too much of it. Far too much. And the fat you eat is the fat you wear and the fat that kills you. All right. So it is. And in the United States, we see in the data very clearly, the United States, yeah, we're number one. We're number one when it comes to fat consumption per capita. We really are. And when we look in the last 50 years, we've been seeing this 1970, 338 added fats and oils, 338 calories, and it rose to 562 calories. I'll be interested to see what the data is for 2020. Okay, so it'll be very interesting to see. And of this increase, what we see is that about 48% of these added calories are due to added fats. Added fats. And most of that happens to be vegetable oils. Oh, olive oil, coconut oil, sesame seed oil, safflower oil. It doesn't matter. All these oils have been the most significant and egregious culprit when it comes to contributing to more oil inside the cells. Yes, we do need some fat, but there are different kinds of fats. These kind of fats, these refined oils, are a real problem. If we look at the biochemistry, now I'm going to teach you a little biochemistry. There's 4 different fat molecules here. Not all fats are the same. This is my point. Not all fats are the same. Now, this fat molecule here, C is carbon, H is hydrogen, O is oxygen. This is a healthy fat on the bottom. This is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, and it's called alpha-linolenic acid, an omega-3 fat. Why it's an omega-3 is because the 3rd carbon from the methyl group has a carbon-carbon double bond. This is a high energy carbon attachment. Carbon can normally attach to 4 atoms at a time, but here it's got a high energy linkage. Now, this is a beautiful thing when it comes to the human body. Why? Because we have enzymes, special enzymes that can take this kind of fat, which has got 3 carbon-carbon double bonds, and we can break those open. We can manipulate that molecule. We can change it, conform it. We can manufacture other things like hormones and enzymes and help with protein development, all kinds of things. It's amazing. So we can use this. This is a very useful type of fat, the omega-3. So this is helpful. And we get lots of this from plant food. It's amazing. We get all that we need. You don't have to ever worry about it. You never have to supplement for it. No, you don't need to get the omega-3 fish oil. Forget that. All right, so you don't need that. Okay, now the next one up is the omega-6. Now this one is from the 6th carbon with a carbon-carbon double bond, but we have less ability to do anything with this. So it actually can cause inflammation. So we want less of the omega-6. The omega-9 is 1 carbon-carbon double bond, and that actually absolutely causes inflammation, and we can't do very much of anything with it. So it's very limited what we can do. And then this at the top is a saturated fatty acid, which is called palmitic acid. So this is really harmful. It's very, very harmful. And we have no carbon-carbon double bonds. We can't even break it open. We can't do anything with it. All we can do in our body, if we get this introduced into our body, we roll it up and we produce more cholesterol, and it forms all kinds of problems. And we don't need this extra cholesterol at all. So this particular saturated fat has the same chemical properties as these modified fats. Did you know that these are modified fats? Yeah. Yeah, plastic, motor oil, diesel fuel, and gasoline. Guess what? They all come from crude oil, which comes from dinosaurs, dead dinosaurs. Yeah, so when you're adding saturated fat in your diet, you're doing no better than adding plastic, motor oil, or diesel fuel to your cereal, all right, or whatever you want to add it to. So we've got to be mindful of our fat, and we have to also be mindful of how much we take in. The average American diet is taking in 161 grams of fat per person per day. If you were to purify that as an oil, that'd be about 3/4 of a cup of oil a day. Go ahead and measure that out. Find out exactly how much. And that's how much everybody's putting, the average American. Now, I don't even come close to that, so somebody else is getting my share. Not good. Now, it all depends on how much we can burn. Everybody's a little different. A collegiate athlete like my youngest son, all right, 6'5", 180 pounds, 9% body fat, all right, he burns fuel like crazy. His body is a furnace, all right? He needs about 80, 85 grams of fat a day. He's putting in the time, energy, and effort, all right? He's an athlete, but most of us are not there, and we're not there. And some of us were athletes, and we think we can still eat like we did when we were in our teens and 20s. Well, that's not happening. So we have to really look. If you have a chronic disease condition and you're overweight or obese, then you should be targeting less than 20 grams of fat per person per day. That's your target. Write that one down. Start checking your labels, because most people have far too much fat in their diet. It really makes a difference. So let's talk about the major sources of fat. So I just want you to be aware. If you're an athlete, if you're fit, if you're active, yes, you need more fat. You absolutely do, because it's part of your metabolic process. But if you're not, you need to really scale it down. So that's a good place to start. Now, these are sources of fat because it's sneaky. It is sneaky. It's in so many foods. You have to really be mindful, and you have to read the labels and look. Number one on the list is going to be all oils. I don't care what kind. All right, so safflower, canola, olive oil, coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. I don't care, it doesn't matter. It's all 100% grease. It is. Now, read the labels, because they're sneaky. They'll say partially hydrogenated oils. Oh, that's sneaky. All right, they try to make it sound better. But it's all oils. That's what that is. So you want to be aware of that. And it's really nasty, because they also fry these things in these oils. I mean, the fast food restaurants, you know what they do? They take this big tub of oil and they put it into the fryer, and they let it sit there for a week while they let all this food be fried in that vat of oil. I mean, it's nasty. It's nasty. I mean, it really is. Oh my God. I mean, and this is already dead stuff, all right? It's dead, and it becomes even nastier. Oh gosh. So all oils, it's not good for you at all. I don't care what kind, all right? The chemistry on oils, here's the research on it, just to give you a summary of it. Decreased artery endothelial function. That's the endothelium is the lining of your blood vessel walls. It's one cell layer thick. And this is so critical to have healthy. Decreased flow-mediated vasodilation, the ability of your arteries to expand and contract. Increased triglycerides, which contribute to all kinds of problems and inflammation. Decreased oxygen transfer, so you can't breathe and you can't get oxygen to your muscles. A sympathetic response, which leads to an entire cascade of all kinds of negative side effects, and increased inflammation and increased cholesterol. None of this is good. None of this is good. So a lot of people say, well, I read that coconut oil is really good for you. No, no, okay, you got hoodwinked, bamboozled, deceived, and fooled. All right, you just did. All right, look, their marketing is fabulous. Their marketing is absolutely fabulous. They used to call them snake oil salesmen years ago. Now they're just coconut oil salesmen. All right, so that's all same thing, just a different outfit. So Dr. Esselstyn says it well. I will invoke his spirit here right now. No oil. Okay, did you get the message? I hope you did. Okay, all right. Now, another source of fat, all meats, including beef, pork, poultry, fish, and eggs. All right, really be aware of that, especially the processed meats. We'll talk more about that in a second, but really important to get that. So all of this, our ancestors didn't eat this. They didn't eat this kind of stuff, all right? They really didn't. And they wild game, all right? So the wild Aborigines, I mean, they have a little bit of rabbit. That's about it, all right? So we eat 10 times, no, more than 10 times the amount of meat that we've ever had 100 years ago. So it's crazy how much meat we consume, and it's nasty, and it's a lot of fat. And then also eggs are also really problematic, especially when it comes to cancer. Colon cancer, nearly 500% increase risk of developing colon cancer by eating just one egg a day. All right, that's significant. Another source of fat is going to be all dairy, including milk, butter, cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, and ice cream. Cheese is the #1 source of saturated fat in the American diet, and it's 70% fat. People love their cheese. I ought to know. I was addicted to it, like most people are. All right, most people are, because it's got hormones in it that react with our brain and keep us addicted. It's supposed to. Oh, it's supposed to be addicted to a calf, not to a human being, but it works in our brain the same way. I love what Dr. Mills says. This is my friend, Dr. Milton Mills, and he's a brilliant physician. He says this: drinking milk for nutrients is like inhaling cigarette smoke for oxygen. Kind of stupid, right? Yep. Yeah. So stop it with the milk. So that's the first one. The first major culprit is going to be the fat in the diet. The next major culprit is going to be what feeds most cancer cells, and that's going to be refined sugar. Looks like a drug, acts like a drug. Guess what? It is a drug. It is. And we consume a lot of it in the United States. We really do. We're absolutely a leader in the world when it comes to sugar consumption. So we eat a lot. 100 years ago was very, very different. All right. So actually a few hundred years ago, in 1700, the average consumption of refined sugar was 1 lump of sugar, 35 grams a week. A week. The average person in the United States in 2013 is consuming 20 lumps of sugar a week on average. All right, that's a lot of sugar. It's a drug. And there are crack houses that are legal. These are crack houses that are legal. They're called places like Sugar Mountain. This is a store on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. I had to take a picture. I said, they sell one thing and one thing only, sugar. That's all they sell. And people buy it. It's legal crack. I mean, it's as addictive as cocaine. All right, it really is. In fact, it's even more addictive. We've seen it in the brain scans. We show that refined sugar triggers the reward centers in the hippocampus more than cocaine does. Now, I'm not saying that you should switch to cocaine, okay? Please do not do that. Don't, it'll still kill you. All right, both of them will kill you. But refined sugar is absolutely a time bomb, and it feeds cancer cell growth. It absolutely does. Because one of those common mutations of cancer cells is to be able to bypass the insulin receptors, and now it can be fed directly by the sugar in the bloodstream. So that's one of the things that happens. So if we get our blood sugars up nice and high, that feeds cancer cell growth. It really does. Another major culprit is going to be processed foods. I don't care about what the label says. If it says lean cuisine or healthy choice, so what? All right, most of these processed foods cause all kinds of problems, all kinds of refined foods. Now, I will also say this, when it comes to cancer, we need to be aware there is no safe level of alcohol. None, zero, zilch, nada, okay, none. No safe level of alcohol. And if you've got cancer or a cancer diagnosis, please, 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 you got to quit. So the truth about alcohol, it contributes to high blood pressure, increases the risk of stroke, damages your heart muscle, leads to heart failure, causes abnormal heart rhythms, adversely interacts with medications. That's on your heart. All right. Now, when it comes to cancer, this was just released this past August by the American Medical Association in a letter to the 2020-2025 Dietary Guidelines Committee for Americans. All right. Now, if we go down here, we say there is no safe threshold for alcohol and cancer risk. The consumption of up to 1.5 drinks per day accounts for an estimated 26 to 35% of all alcohol attributable U.S. cancer deaths. So I hope you get the message. A lot of people say, well, isn't a little bit of alcohol healthy for you? I don't think so. I don't think so. In fact, we've done the research. We show this, all right? So 1 bottle of wine is equivalent to 5 cigarettes for men and 10 cigarettes for women. Not good. Not good. All right. So it's just as bad as smoking, which also leads me to the next culprit, and that is smoking. If you smoke, you've got to quit. You've got to quit. Now, I know how hard it is for a lot of people to quit. So I'm going to suggest that you get this book. If you do smoke, or if you know somebody that does smoke, get them this book. It's absolutely fantastic. Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. Every single one of my clients has been successful in being able to quit smoking for good after reading this book. It really is fabulous. So if we look at all of these culprits together, and we look at the 4 energies together of how we are as human beings, the real cause of cancer, there's lots of factors going on. Number 1, there's a persistent sympathetic response in the human body. It's persistent. It stays over a long period of time. And there's acidification of the bloodstream that happens when we're in the sympathetic state. And that also suppresses the immune system. So the immune system can't do its job of purging those abnormal cells. So it's what causes this. What puts us in the sympathetic state is stress, anger, resentment, blame, shame, guilt, rigid attachments, lifestyle, and sympathetic foods. It's a mix of all of this. All of it is there. So now let's talk about what foods, now that I've depressed you, right? Okay, so what foods actually promote health? So let's go to the foods that promote health, because we want to be able to look at the good stuff, right? So again, what do we need to know in terms of being able to promote cellular health? So we go back to the cell and we look at the cell as an energy system, which is just like a car. A car is an energy system. So the engine of the car are what we call the mitochondria. They are the pistons of the engine. Now, a lot of people get focused on protein, but protein is for parts. It is only for parts, and it's just for parts, nothing else. All right. For fuel, the body needs 2 things. It needs a little bit of triglyceride, all right, and it needs glycogen, primarily glycogen. It needs to be able to formulate that glycogen. That's human gasoline. This is human oil. We are a diesel engine. We are a diesel engine. In the parasympathetic state, we are a diesel engine. So going back to this graphic again, what we see, we need amylose and amylopectin. You'll notice that protein is nowhere to be found as far as in how we actually produce energy in the parasympathetic state. All right, so we don't need protein. What we need are amylose and amylopectin. So here's the molecular structures of amylose and amylopectin. Each circle represents a glucose molecule. So amylose is a spiral molecule. Amylopectin is like a tree. Now, we have an enzyme in our mouth called amylase. Amylase is essential to breaking down amylose and amylopectin, to being able to break it up so we can start to formulate glycogen in inside the cells. Human beings have 6 times more amylase than any other primate. We are meant to have amylose and amylopectin, which is otherwise known, and by the way, you don't see it on any food labels, right? Okay, so what we need is amylose and amylopectin, which is otherwise known as starch. Yes, starch. Yeah, starch. This is the cover of the scientific journal Starch. Yes, there are scientists that study starch. Yes, that's why Play-Doh is made from starch. Why? Because if the kids eat it, they don't die. Okay, so that's why we want to be able to have good things like starch. What starch looks like for you and me: legumes, beans, peas, lentils, lots. By the way, you can never be bored on this dietary approach. There are over 2,000 different types of legumes. Knock yourself out. All right, whole grains, millet. I had a millet burger just the other day. It was delicious. All right, so millet, quinoa, amaranth, oats, rice. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many different kinds of whole grains. Amazing, amazing. All right, even if you have a gluten intolerance, you can still make out. There's lots that have no gluten. And then starchy vegetables, lots. Potatoes. The Incas actually developed potatoes. They are the originators of potatoes. Over 4,000 different types of potatoes. Amazing. Sweet potatoes, squashes, all fabulous, fantastic food. All plants produce starch, including all vegetables. In case you forgot what they look like, I thought I'd show you a picture. All right, so here they are. This is where you should be going to in the supermarket, not to where the boxes are. Stay away from all the boxes in the aisles. And then you want fresh fruit. Fresh fruit, fabulous for your health, absolutely fabulous. Yes, the sugar in fruit is an unrefined sugar. It does not feed cancer, it's fructose. So it's completely healthy for you, completely. All right, so you want fresh fruit, not fruit juices, no, you want fresh fruit. You can cut them up and eat them. Now, healthy fats are good for us. We need a certain amount if we are not overweight. Okay, if you're not overweight, you need a certain amount of healthy fat. So you need to get them from nuts, seeds, and avocados. All right. If you are overweight, you can cut back on this significantly. 1 avocado is 30 grams of fat. It's a lot. All right. A handful of nuts or seeds, typically anywhere from 14 to 22 grams of fat. So it adds up very quickly. So if you are overweight and you need to lose weight, stay away from the nuts, seeds, and avocados for a while. That'll help you out. All right. And then when you get to a point where you are finally fit and healthy and you can burn enough of these fats, then you can introduce a little bit of these. And that's all you need. Now, a lot of people say, well, I'm still addicted to sugar. I love my sugar. I love my sweet foods. Yes, I understand that. I've been there, done that. I've been addicted to it as well. So we need healthy alternatives. So there's several different ones, but the best one is a whole food. It's just one ingredient: dates. Dates. Yeah. So there's a company called Just Date Syrup. Oh, I got to tell you, this stuff is really good. It's really good. And the pomegranate molasses is heaven. It's absolutely great. So it's really great stuff. I don't make any money from any of this. I wish I did. Oh, God. So now the benefits from this dietary approach, so many benefits. There's research studies on all of this. It's incredible. It's incredible. We've got so many benefits from this dietary approach, and it really helps your body to heal. All right. It absolutely helps your body to heal. And when you strengthen your immune system, guess what? Your immune system is able to purge those cancer cells. You want your immune system doing that job. You don't want chemotherapy knocking out all the healthy bacteria in your gut and all those cancer cells as well. I mean, that's devastating. That's devastating to your body. All right. Now, the thing is, you want to really support your body as much as possible. And keep this in mind, that the food you eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. Now, you get to choose. You get to choose. You're an adult. I'm just sharing with you the information. You're an adult. You get to choose, because every time you eat or drink, you're either feeding disease or fighting it. You get to choose. All right, as in the words of my wise sage, wise yogi, the wise yogi. Yes, Yogi Berra. He said, what's it going to be, boo-boo? What's it going to be? So you get to choose, right? Now, this is my food pyramid based on the neurological impact of food. All right, food affects our central nervous system. So the foods that will put us in the sympathetic state, causing inflammation, meat, dairy, oils, and processed foods, being toxic, refined sugar, deep fried foods, all sodas, all carbonated beverages, including carbonated water of any kind, legal drugs, caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and excitotoxins include aspartame and MSG. My advice, if you've got cancer or a cancer diagnosis, get these out of your system. Really, stop abusing your body. Stop it. And really move towards promoting life promoting foods, starchy veggies, whole grains, legumes, greens, colorful veggies, and fruit. And that's where you want to be. Now, if you need to lose some weight, you want to be about 50-50 as far as the starchy foods and the greens, colorful veggies, and fruit. So you want to be about 50% in each of those categories. If you're healthy and fit, then you need a little bit more starch. So that's how that works. Now, I'm not the only one saying this. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine promotes a whole food, plant-based diet. And we're not the only ones. The American Diabetes Association, the Endocrine Society, the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the American Association of Clinical Endocrinology, and the American Medical Association, Diabetes Canada. I mean, look, there's so many organizations that now have looked at the research and are saying for optimal health, major scientific and medical organizations agree, eat more unrefined plant foods. Okay, so we're not the only ones saying this. There's a whole bunch of people saying this. So have your refrigerator look more like a garden teeming with life rather than a morgue rotting and smelling of death. Okay, it will serve you well. It really will. And as Hippocrates said well over 2,000 years ago, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Now, let's look quickly at some of the research. I just want to share some of the research with you. My good friend, Dr. Colin Campbell, I had the opportunity to sit down with him at the Lifestyle Medicine Conference. It was wonderful to spend time with him and his wife, and just really just terrific. And he wrote this book called The China Study. Absolutely an incredible human being. His devotion and dedication to science and being able to make a difference for people is extraordinary. Just really wonderful. Now, what happened was that he came across some research years ago, and it was first done in India. And what happened was that they used two sets of rats. They took one set of rats and they put them on what they did is they inoculated all the rats with something to induce cancer. All right, so an aflatoxin. So they induced the rats with aflatoxin to try to initiate cancer in the liver. All right, now what happened was they took one group of those rats and they put them on a 20% casein protein diet. So 20% casein, which is of dairy protein. They put them on that 20% protein. And then what happened is that all of the rats developed what they call hyperplastic or cancerous tumors. All right, so 100%. Now, the other group of rats, 12 of them, they inoculated them with the aflatoxin, but they only put them on 5% dairy protein, and zero of them developed cancer. So this is very fascinating. It was replicated again 10 years later, and Dr. Colin Campbell came across this research, and he says, that's fascinating. So he decided to replicate the research, and he wanted to play around with it a little bit. So he replicated the research, and he wanted to see what the progression of cancer was over time. So when he did that, he was able to see that, okay, the rats that had only 5% dairy protein, they stayed at 0. They stayed at the bottom here. But the group of rats that had 20% protein, what they started to show tumors was at 3 weeks. It increased dramatically by 6 weeks, even more by 9 weeks, and then finally to 100% by 12 weeks. So he wanted to see the progression. So that was fascinating. He replicated this several times and he was able to see this on a consistent basis. Then he said, let's play around with this. What if we go back and forth between the 5% and the 20% in just one group of rats? That's an interesting proposition. So he took one group of rats, inoculated them with the aflatoxin, and he kept them at 20% protein for the beginning. So he did that. And then what happens at 3 weeks, we started to see the increase in tumors as expected. All right. But then he did this. He said, let's put them now for the next 3 weeks, from weeks 3 through 6, let's put them on just 5% dairy protein and see what happens. Fascinating. What we saw was tumor regression. Wow, we've never seen that before. That's interesting. All right, then we put them for the next 3 weeks on 20% protein again. And what did we see? Tumor progression, cancer growth spiked up again. Oh, and then for the next 3 weeks, he put that protein level down to 5%. And guess what we saw? Tumor regression again. Wow. So what he was able to show conclusively is that we could actually turn on or off tumor progression simply by modulating the protein in the diet. That's fascinating. So with more research studies, what he was able to show was that if you took normal cells and you introduced a low amount of cancer initiation of the aflatoxin dose, less initiation, but you had those cells exposed to a high protein diet, high protein, animal protein diet, especially the casein, that led to more tumors, more cancer. Whereas if we had even a high dose of a mutagenic initiating factor, the dose, if we had a higher dose of that, but low protein in the diet, we ended up with less tumors. That's significant. That's significant. And what we also showed is that very interesting in the research was this. When we look at epidemiological research in the world, we see that women, females, who grow up in countries where they have a very low amount of animal in their diet, a predominantly plant-based diet, what happens is that they start what we call menarche or menstruating at an age of about 15 or so. That is normal. So they start to change their hormones and go up to about a level of 35 over the course of the next 5 years. Then that stays at that level until they're about age 45, and then they go into what we call menopause. So they go into menopause for about 5 years, and then by age 50, they return back to their previous level when they were children. But in women that grow up where there's a predominantly animal-based diet, what we see is that menarche is starting much earlier, 9 or 10 years of age. I've talked to 2nd and 3rd grade teachers, and they see this all the time. Not only that, but there is a dramatic increase in the amount of estrogen hormones. It goes up to a level of 50. So it's dramatically increased. That is sustained for a longer period of time until about 50, and then going into menopause until 55. This area here that is above the normal, the plant-based level, between the plant-based level and the animal-based diet, that is what we refer to in science as the estrogen load. This increased amount of estrogen for women. And this estrogen load is definitely directly correlated with the increase in the risk of developing breast cancer in women. And it's the same with prostate cancer in men. It's the same. So this hormonal change that occurs because of the animal-based foods in the diet. Dr. T. Colin Campbell summarized this. He said, casein as a dairy protein is the most relevant cancer promoter. It doesn't cause cancer, but it promotes cancer stronger than anything else that we've ever discovered. And animal protein turns cancer development and growth on. It turns it on. In addition, you should know that the World Health Organization in 2015 classified all red meat, all processed meats, sausages, hot dogs, bacon, salami, pepperoni, ham, all the cured meats, all of those are classified as a class 1 carcinogen, the same as asbestos, nicotine, and plutonium. Okay, processed meats. So those of you going out to barbecue this summer, look out. Okay, look out, because this is the stuff that's it's class 1 carcinogens. And whereas all the other red meats, pork, beef, lamb, all of those are considered class 2, probably cause cancer. Are you willing to risk probably? I'm definitely not interested in probably or definitely. Okay, so really, you want to play it safe. Now, the meat industry and the food industry, they don't care. All right, they don't care. Their response, there's an irony here because bologna is a class 1 carcinogen as well. All right, they don't care. They'd rather sell it to you. And you turn on the TV. I turn on the TV to watch a basketball game. Guess what? They're selling it. They're selling it. All right, but there's no amount of this that's safe. Pepperoni, hot dog, sausages, bacon, salami, deli meats, all of them, class 1 carcinogens. So stay away from it. Please, please, please do not give it to the children or the grandchildren. Please, 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 please. All right, don't set them up for this. So the evidence on processed meat and cancer is clear cut. The data show that no level of intake can confidently be associated with a lack of risk. This is from the World Cancer Research Fund. Okay, and just 9 grams of processed meat per day can increase a woman's risk of breast cancer by 20%. That's significant. And then, no kidding here. All right, the carcinogens found in cooked meat are thought to explain why women who eat more grilled, barbecued, or smoked meats over their lifetimes may have as much as 47% higher odds of breast cancer. That's significant, significant. And we've shown in the research that vegan women, let me go back here real quick. Okay, so we've shown that vegan women have 34% lower rates of female-specific cancers such as breast, cervical, and ovarian cancer. All right, really significant. So we want to be able to stick with that. And we're showing more research like this all the time. All right, and Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, brilliant Nobel Prize winning scientist at Cal Berkeley. She's amazing. And she showed that if we go onto a vegan plant-based diet, it caused more than 500 genes to change in just a period of 3 months. 3 months, turning on the genes that prevent disease and turning off the genes that cause cancer, heart disease, and other illnesses, including breast cancer and many others. All right, so really, really profound research. And then she partnered up with Dr. Dean Ornish, and they did research on prostate cancer. And what they showed is that a plant-based diet and lifestyle intervention, that's what they did with these gentlemen. And they were able to show that they had a control group and the experimental group. So the experimental group on a plant-based diet, they were able to decrease their PSA, the prostate specific antigen, by 4% versus the control group had an increase of PSA by 6%. Decreased the growth of prostate cancer cells by 70% versus the control group of only 9%. Whereas the gene expression contributing to cancer was also decreased, and increased gene expression for preventing cancer as well. So we've got lots of research. And then I love this one too. This is red meat increases the risk of colon cancer. This is the International Journal of Cancer. And they had 32,147 women. And those who consumed red meat were more likely to develop distal colon cancer than those who consumed no red meat. All right, so it really makes a difference. Colon cancer, I've come across it several times when I did autopsies, and it looks like this. I thought I'd show you a picture, just so you can get a sense. Now, I want you to understand, this is a part of the colon. This edge here, all right, needs to connect to this edge here. All right, it is a tube that's been split open. So this edge has to be folded up. You have to, in your mind, you have to think, this is a garden hose that's been split open and flattened out. So this edge here has to meet up with this edge here. All right, here's a polyp, there's another polyp, but here is this cancer sitting in the middle of this pipe. Now, when I've come across this, it would basically, my scissors would stop because there was hardly any room for anything to get through. So these cancers are a real problem because basically they start to plug up the area, so none of the waste of the food can get out. You can't move. So it's a real problem. And this is a very unhealthy colon. And by the way, all of this that you see over here, all of this, that's fat. It's not supposed to even be there. Okay, that's all the gristle, that's all fat. That's all fat, pretty nasty. Yeah, and there's a pocket here, which is the diverticuli. So you got pockets. This is nasty. This is nasty, nasty, nasty. Okay, so there was a research experiment done. And what they did is they did this experiment, very interesting, because they noticed this, that African Americans have a significantly higher incidence of colon cancer. They have 65 out of 100,000 population. Whereas in rural South Africans, it's only 5 out of 100,000. Okay, so it's a big difference, big difference. All right, so 12 times the difference. So what they did, they noticed that the Americans, the African Americans, had a predominantly animal-based diet, whereas the South Africans had a predominantly plant-based diet. So what they decided to do is they took two groups. All right, so they took a group of South African Americans and a group of South Africans, and they swapped their diets for 2 weeks. Okay, before and after biopsies to look at the colon and look at the factors related to cancer. So the South Africans followed the standard American diet for 2 weeks, and the African Americans followed the South African diet for 2 weeks. And then we looked at the changes in the cellular, what we call proliferation rates, which is precancerous rates. So here is the data to show you. So initially, this is very interesting in colon cancer. So the Africans had, in terms of their proliferation rates, they had a very low percentage, whereas African Americans and Caucasians very high. Africans very low in terms of their proliferation rates in the ascending colon. African Americans and Caucasians much higher. Same thing, Africans much different in the transverse part of the colon. So all three sections of the colon were measured, and Africans and Caucasians both much higher. All right, now what they did a before. So what we did is this. So we looked at, we looked at the diets. And so the low fiber intervention diet for the Africans, what we did is we put them on the standard American diet. Beef sausage, links, pancakes, hamburgers and French fries for lunch, meatloaf and rice for dinner. Standard American diet. Okay, now for the African Americans, we put them on the South African diet. Now it's not a completely whole food plant-based diet. No, there's still a little bit of meat, but it's predominantly a lot more plants. So corn fritters, salmon croquettes, spinach, red pepper, and onions for breakfast. And then corn dogs and a veggie dog. Okay, even processed food, homemade tater tots and mango slices. And then okra, tomatoes, and high maize meal, high maize corn, so the black-eyed peas, and then pineapple and black tea for dinner. So that's the typical example of what we see. So it's not perfect, but what we wanted to look at is what's going on at the cellular level. So we did the biopsies. Now I've done the dissections, and I can tell you, setting this up for histological examination. So the American group, okay, in terms of proliferation, what we saw is that before they had a lot. So this dark stain is showing the cells that had a lot of mitotic activity inside the cells. That means they were dividing. So we saw a lot of that, but after just 2 weeks, that had decreased significantly. So that's the African Americans. So it decreased by about half. Whereas the South Africans, their proliferation, you could see, was very nominal, very little of the dark stain. But then after 2 weeks, it had increased significantly in just 2 weeks. So it increased a lot, almost doubled. almost double. So it's rather significant. That's proliferation. And then if we look at inflammation, all right, we looked at this, so we could actually stain for this before. So in the African American group, so before, lots of inflammation. So the darker stain here is indication of inflammation in the cells. And then after 2 weeks, much less, okay, it decreased a lot. All right, whereas the South Africans, inflammation was a little bit there, but then after 2 weeks, it was significantly higher. All right, so it really made a change. So that's cellular evidence for you. Pretty hard to argue with that, wouldn't you say? Yeah. Another question that a lot of people have is around soy. All right, so dairy, soy, and the risk of breast cancer. All right, what we show in the research, a lot of women ask me this, well, what about soy? I've heard that soy has the estrogens and causes cancer. No, no, no. All right, there's a difference in the types of estrogens. So phytoestrogens versus actual estrogens in dairy cow's milk. All right, so 3 cups of dairy increase the risk of breast cancer by 80%. 2 cups a day increased it a risk of breast cancer by 70%. 1 cup increased it by 50%. A quarter to a third of a cup increased it by 30%. Published in the International Journal of Epidemiology last year. Whereas what they showed, having soy in any amount decreased the risk of breast cancer by 30%. Decreased the risk of breast cancer by 30%. Decreased it. Knock yourself out, ladies, all right? Have the soy, don't worry about it. That hype that was done years ago, I used to hear it all the time. It's not true. Okay, now the standard American diet is what you got to watch out for. Here's what the standard American diet looks like. Yes, and what we show in the United States, our data from the USDA shows that we average only about 12% plant food, 25% animal food, and 63% processed foods. That's the added fats, oil, sugars, and refined grains. That's the real serious problem. Okay, these 2 areas, significant. Our plant consumption is so minimal, it's horrific. It's horrific. Now, if we compare this to the healthiest groups of people on the face of the planet, those are the people living in the blue zones. They live to over 100 and they're healthy. All right, Loma Linda, Nicoya Peninsula, Sardinia, Korea, and Okinawa. All right, we've analyzed their diets. Here are their diets. So in the Nicoya Peninsula, I'm just going to summarize this really fast. 58% plants, 58%. That's like almost 5 times what we have in the United States. 58% plants. Sardinia, Italy, 63% plants, even more. Ikaria, Greece, 78% plants, a lot more than us in the United States. Loma Linda, California, 81% plants. And the best health outcomes happen to be, guess where? In Okinawa, Japan, with a whopping 97% plants. Yeah, right. 97% plants. Now, the country of Canada in 2019 looked at all the research. They threw out all the private interest. And in 2019, 2 years ago, they created a new food guide for the entire country of Canada. And what they came up with, 88% plants. At least 88% plants. That's what they came up with. It's amazing. At least 88%. And no dairy, none whatsoever. They threw dairy out. They said, drink water. Drink water. So a healthy diet and lifestyle behaviors could prevent 40% of cancer cases easily. Easily. All right. And basing our diets around plant foods like vegetables, fruit, whole grains, and beans, which contain fiber and other nutrients, can reduce our risk of cancer. All right. Absolutely the case. So we want to be able to go there. And then plant foods are good sources of substances called phytochemicals, which can help to protect cells in the body from damage that can lead to cancer. All right. Now, the American Cancer Society has just released this not too long ago. All right. This is back in June. All right. Calls for increasing plant-based foods excluding or limiting red and processed meat to reduce cancer risk. All right, so it's really, and it's calling for the community initiatives and public policies to increase access to healthful foods. Finally, they're on board. Finally, all right, so the American Cancer Society. So I'm going to recommend two fabulous, fantastic books for you. Two absolutely fantastic books. Number one, Beyond Cancer by Sally Lipsky. All right, how to adopt a plant-based diet to optimize cancer survival and long-term health. She shares her story. She's got all kinds of great information in that. And then another fantastic book is Chris Beat Cancer. Chris' work is comprehensive plan for healing naturally. He completely beat cancer. It's a wonderful book, great story. He's got a great website, all kinds of things. So the last thing I want to touch on, so I hammered away on the food because it's really number one, but I also want to talk about the comprehensive aspect of healing from cancer. This is a fantastic, amazing documentary, and it's change your mind, change your body, change your life. It is absolutely fantastic. You must watch this. In this documentary, a wonderful, wonderful researcher by the name of Dr. Kelly Turner. What she did is she went around the world. She researched over 1,500 cases of radical remission from cancer, complete remission from cancer, not using medications or using less medications, but complete remission from cancer. And then she studied all of these people and she interviewed several hundred people. Now, what she was able to determine that there were 75 specific actions that people took in helping them to prevent or reverse their cancer, but not everybody did all 75. However, everybody did these 9. These are the 9 in common, all right? Radically change your diet to a plant-based diet, taking control of your health, not being a victim. Follow your intuition. Pay attention to what your gut tells you. Using herbs and science supplements. Now notice these only 2 have to do with the diet. The rest has to do with the inner game. Releasing suppressed emotions, and that's huge. Increasing positive emotions, embracing social support, deepening your spiritual connection, having strong reasons for living. I'm working with a client right now. This is our template for how we're actually addressing cancer. And we've got a couple other items as well because he's a musician. So I've got music on his list. I also have exercise on his list. All right. But the thing is, this is the foundation. This is the base for being able to address it. And the major thing that we're working on, and this is a big part for everyone with cancer, so many people, the biggest one is number 5, releasing suppressed emotions. It's huge. So I'm going to recommend these 2 books. This is Kelly Turner's book, Radical Remission. It's fabulous. It's beautifully written. It's got lots of great information. And this is Surviving Cancer Against All Odds. It's one of the best books I've read relating to cancer. And then another key book to help in this journey is Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. Absolutely fantastic, really great material. I had the honor and privilege of doing training with him when he was alive many years ago. Absolutely beautiful work. It really makes a difference. Here's why. Of all cancer patients, 61% have forgiveness issues. Let that sink in. Of those, more than half are severe, according to research by Dr. Michael Berry, a pastor and the author of the book, The Forgiveness Project. Harboring these negative emotions, this anger and hatred, creates a state of chronic anxiety. Chronic anxiety predictably produces excess adrenaline and cortisol, which deplete the production of natural killer cells, which is your body's foot soldier in the fight against cancer. The fact is, of course, this applies to everyone, not just cancer patients. A major part of my work is helping people to get rid of this deep-seated resentment. Life is not meant to be suffering. It's not meant to be suffering. It's just that you will suffer it rather than enjoy it until you let go of your mind's attachments and just go for the ride freely, no matter what happens. No matter what happens. So we have to let go of our attachments. So here's another fabulous book that I recommend to all my cancer clients and many of my clients, and it's The 5 Levels of Attachment. Now, what happens is that we get to a place of placing the word should or must on a lot of things and conditions in our life. We start saying things like, you should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, I should do this, I shouldn't do that. We should all over everything. And that gets us into trouble. Now, last time I checked, there is no one that I can think of on the face of the planet who really is qualified to dictate how life should be for anyone else on the face of the planet, even though I know my father comes to mind. He thinks that he has that ability. But no one does. No one does. This is where we get into trouble. So we have to let go of our attachments. Really, we do. And I love what the author, Don Miguel Ruiz, says this: of all the beliefs to detach from, this is the most important one. Let go of the attachment that you must obtain some image of perfection in order to be happy. That will serve you well, I promise you. According to Dr. Stephen Stanford, Chief of Surgery at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, refusing to forgive makes people sick and keeps them that way. With that in mind, forgiveness therapy is now being used to help treat diseases such as cancer. It's profound. It really is profound. I have seen this work absolutely magical in people's lives. It really has made a difference. Forgiveness, anyone can hold a grudge, but it takes a person with character to forgive. When you forgive, you release yourself from a painful burden. Forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay, not at all. And it doesn't mean that person should still be welcome in your life. It doesn't mean that. It just means you have made peace with the pain and are ready to let it go. You're ready to let it go. As one of my favorite teachers says, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, forgiveness is an act of self-love. And that's what's needed when it comes to cancer. Letting go gives us freedom. And freedom is the only condition for happiness. If in our heart, we still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, or possessions, we cannot be free. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to recognize that all there is fear or love. That's all there is. And when we hold on to fear, then that feeds anger and resentment and rage and anxiety and worry and all of that. Let that go and choose love. Choose love. Choose love. Life is so brief, and we don't have time to be really caught up in all the rest. So my friends, what I've shared with you, what's possible is that there's actually 4 stages of cancer. Initiation, promotion, and progression we've talked about. But what's possible is a 4th stage, and that is regression. Self-healing and shrinking, supported by decreasing fat, a plant-based diet, and forgiveness therapy, and many other things too. All of lifestyle medicine is very important. All of it. All of it's very important. So I've given you some practice to get started today. I've just focused on the 2 most important practices that I've come across in my work with cancer clients. So drink more water. I didn't mention that, but you got to drink your water to be in the parasympathetic state. More whole grains, legumes, fruits, and veggies. Reduce your fat, get to no oil. Move more, reduce your alcohol and smoking completely. 9 radical remission practices, and forgive and let go of resentment. That will be a good start. It will be a really, really good start. So my final question for you is, would you like to make the rest of your life the best of your life? I hope so. I hope your answer is yes. So imagine for a moment, what would that look like for you? If you were living your best life, if you were free of cancer, if the people you love were free of cancer, if your friends and family were free of cancer. I mean, that would be amazing, right? Like you could actually live with vitality and energy. You could be like these people. You're just filled with joy and happiness in your life. And you can look forward to being able to end your life still with lots of health and energy and vitality and fun all the way to the end. But where are you now? Are you there yet? Chances are you're not. So how will you get from where you are now to where you want to be? Well, if you want to do anything in life and you want to do it well, you need a plan. But do you have a plan that's actually proven to work? Most people don't. I do. And it works. And I'm living proof, because I was 26 years ago, I was 55 pounds heavier, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I had issues. I was going down the wrong path. And I got jolted when my friend called me chubby one day, and I made a solemn promise to change my life. And I've changed my life by going back to fundamentals that I've learned from being an athlete for many years and being a coach. So I have a 4-point plan. It works in sports, it works in business, and guess what? It works in health. Number one, we must begin from within. Einstein said the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. Now that's humbling, because we have to get that we created our problems not intentionally, but subconsciously. So we have to learn how to rewire our subconscious mind. Fortunately for me, I've had many wonderful teachers that have taught me just how to do that. Second, we need a proven strategy, an evidence-based approach, because doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results, is the definition of, insanity. And then third, we need to be intelligent and create a structure for support and accountability. Nobody is successful by themselves. So we need to surround ourselves with the right people and the right structure for that accountability. And then fourth, we need to develop a track record of consistency, because that's the only way we produce habits, new habits, because habits produce results. So this is a path that I know works. It's worked in my life, and it's worked in the lives of so many of my friends and students and clients that I've worked with over the years, and it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. Jerry has been cancer-free for several years now. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. And he will be the first one to tell you that he wouldn't be alive today had he not started to change his life and using everything that I've taught him. So some of my services that I provide, I do one-on-one lifestyle medicine consultations. If you're interested in just creating a plan and getting started, this is what I do. It's one of the things that I do. So I'll send you information on that. This is my friend John, who's happy because he's 75 pounds lighter and all his cardiac markers are completely normal. And then I also have a group coaching program. This is phenomenal because it's an opportunity to create a network, and we create community and a support group in this as well for you. It's awesome. It's awesome. I coach you for 12 weeks, but you have a support group for an entire year. It's awesome. It's an incredible opportunity to really create that support and consistency to be able to change your life. I have an entire curriculum. It's fabulous. You really get set up for success. I do not leave you with just information. I will empower you to actually create a plan and then execute it. I'm an excellent coach. All right. My athletes always did extraordinarily well. My clients are incredibly successful. So I will set you up for success. It's awesome. So you'll be able to do that. Here's just one of my students, Donna. She's a retired nurse. And in 2018, she'd already been 8 years of being plant-based, but she still had some issues, high blood pressure, cardiac arrhythmia, and she had weight that she was very, very difficult to lose. She couldn't lose this weight. So she said, Ruben, what do I do? So she came into my program and did it 4 times. It was awesome. She did my group coaching program and it was fabulous. And so we made those tweaks. We made those adjustments. And January 2020, 70 pounds lighter. And I got to give you an updated picture because this is just recently. So she is still holding steady at 70 pounds lighter. She's walking 10, 11, 12, 13 miles, all right, a day. I mean, she's just amazing. And she's 69 years old. She will tell you she's living her best life now. So that's one of the things that is from the group coaching program. I also do programs for organizations because I believe that an unhealthy workforce is a less than fully productive workforce. So when we can change that, we can actually make a difference in the productivity and the profitability of a company. So this is my contact information. You're going to get all this information and a whole bunch more. So let me go to the chat window now and see what questions you have. And let's see. Let me go to that. And if you want to unmute yourself, so let me see. Let me go back up to questions. Okay, all right. Okay, let's see. Somebody from Bosnia. All right, great, awesome. Okay, if the life expectancy higher in other countries due to healthier eating, or is ours decreased due to accidents, violence, etc.? Well, our life expectancy is predominantly affected because of the lifestyle habits that we have in this country. And we have so much more of the high fat foods, and we have a lot more of that as opposed to accidents and violence. That's a small part, but the number one and number two killers are heart disease and cancer. That's 50% of our deaths in the United States. Let's see another question. Oils, you don't need any oils for cooking whatsoever. In fact, in the email I'm going to send to you, I'm going to send you some information on how to cook without oil whatsoever. It's great. You don't need oil. You don't need it at all. In fact, the simplest way to stir fry, if you wanted to stir fry vegetables, real simple. Get a good stainless steel pan, start with the onions. All right, you chop up the onions, you put them in the pan, and that sweats the onions. Guess what? It's easy. And then you just add water whenever you need to. It's great. Do vegetarians live longer? The research shows that actually vegetarians and vegans actually live even longer than vegetarians. So yes, we are showing that absolutely the case. Is maple syrup a no? No, it's not that it's a no. It's that what's healthiest as a whole food is the dates. So date sugar and date syrup are the healthiest option. It's not that maple syrup is a no. I would say what's better are the dates. All right. Stevia is the only safe sweetener. I disagree with that because what happens, it's an herb and it overstimulates the hippocampus. So we don't want too much of a sweetener anyway. All right, so that's that. Let's see. If whole food plant-based if whole food plant-based diets result in less heart disease and cancer, what do vegetarians most often die from? Well, the thing is, we all die from a variety of different things. What happens is that quality of our life is extended, and we end up having death at some point, and it might be that we die from heart disease or we might die from cancer, but we'll end up having a higher quality of life for a longer period of time. So the thing about it, what we talk about in lifestyle medicine is that we have so much deterioration of the quality of life right now in the United States. We actually have the highest rate of disease and disability burden at the end of our lives in the United States. So what we're showing, the United States averages 12 or more years of disease burden and disability at the end of our lives, plus a shorter life expectancy. Yet when we look at the people in Okinawa and we look at those other places in the blue zones, what we show is that they have longer life expectancy and the quality of their life is so much better. So what we see is much higher quality until the very end, and then they die much more quickly. So people die from a variety of different reasons, but what we want to look at and consider is the quality of life over the length of life. That's really important. So great question on that. Let's see, is an iron supplement safe or necessary on a whole food plant-based diet? So iron supplementation was something that became very popular many years ago because What we did in the medical community, we diagnosed something called anemia. And then we said, okay, if you've got anemia, then you've got low iron. So what we're going to do is fix the problem. So the medical model is to fix the problem, never the cause. All right, so you have to keep that in mind. So to fix the problem, oh, you got low iron, let's give you more iron. Oh, you got low vitamin D, let's give you more vitamin D. Oh, you got low this, let's give you more of that. So it's a very, very antiquated approach, and it's the Newtonian approach of looking at the body is that if you've got something wrong with the machine, you fix that part of the machine, and that's the only thing you fix. But that's not a lifestyle medicine approach. I mean, it's not a holistic approach. So in a holistic approach, we're going to look at, okay, what's causing the iron to actually go down? Oh, there could be a lot of factors because the body's being in the sympathetic state. So this is where we go back to looking at the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic state. When the body's in the sympathetic state, a lot of things are going to get affected, including iron. So it's not because you don't need to take an iron supplement. You may need to take we need to look at a whole bunch of things. This is why in my consultations, what I will do is I do a very comprehensive evaluation of all your lifestyle habits, because I want to look at everything, your diet, your sleep habits, your exercise habits, everything to assess to see what's going on. Because your iron being low could be just one little indicator. That's all, it's just an indicator. We want to look at the whole picture. So really great question. So are vitamin B and D supplements necessary? Okay, so very, very good question as far as supplementation. What we say in lifestyle medicine is that the only real supplement that we must have is vitamin B12. So we need to have vitamin B12 because it comes from bacteria in the soil. But most of us don't get enough of it because all the plants and all the food has been hyper washed. So we've lost a lot of that bacteria naturally in the vitamin B12. So we don't have that. So there's ways to do that. I talk about it in some of my webinars, but then we can get vitamin B12 from nutritional yeast. We can get it in some of the plant milks that are fortified with vitamin B12. And you can also take a supplement, very, very simple. I take a supplement once a week. It's about 1,000 micrograms, which is very, very easy to get. And you store it in your liver. And you only use about 2.5 micrograms a day. That's it. It's not very much. All right. But so 1,000 micrograms, overkill. All right. It's very easy to get, plenty that you need. Very, very simple. So I got one bottle. It's got 100 chewables in it. So it's going to last me more than a year. So almost 2 years. So really good question. Let's see. Is the keto diet okay for cancer? No. No, the keto diet is not okay for anything. All right. It's not okay for anything. So don't go with the keto diet, because what the ketogenic diet does, it actually causes all kinds of changes. And we've got enough research showing that it puts the body in the sympathetic state. So stay away from the ketogenic diet. All right. So let's see. Please discuss safety of soy as part of a whole food plant-based diet. It's perfectly safe. Perfectly safe. Absolutely fine to have some soy. Now, here's what I say. Just have a little bit, have a modest amount. It is a slightly processed food. What we want to be able to do is Dr. Michael Greger talks about, and he has the wonderful website, nutritionfacts.org. What we want to be able to do is have whole food as opposed to processed food. And we want to have plant food as opposed to animal food. So soy is a plant food and it's mildly processed. All right, but there's nothing added and there's nothing taken away. All we do is mash up the edamame. That's all we do. We mash it up and we press it, and then we got soy. So that's what we're doing. So it's nominally processed. It's not a whole lot of processing. So I recommend just a little bit. I have some almost every day, and it's perfectly fine. Not a problem. In fact, what we show in the research is very interesting, is that the women who have more soy in their diet in Eastern Asia, actually, we show that the soy is actually, the more soy that they have, the more protective against breast cancer that it is. So it's very interesting. All right, let's see. Let's see. Okay, implemented a whole food plant-based diet to slow and stop, reverse if possible, the progression of recurring prostate cancer. My data, PSA so far is consistent with the RCT data. My data, 10% decrease, stability 40% less than projected. See prostate cancer section of Nutrition Facts for several relevant are trials in addition to oranges. Absolutely. There's lots of stuff. I can't even cover half the stuff that's in nutritionfacts.org. There's no way. So really great. Yeah, good for you, James. All right, that's great. Let's see. Question about, is frankincense supplement benefit for inflammation? I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen research on that yet. So that's a very good question. You may want to research that out. I'll have to look into that. Okay, let's see. I wonder if the intake for soy for males would increase the risk of getting prostate cancer by 30%. No, absolutely not. No, it's the reverse. It actually decreases the risk of prostate cancer. So that's what we see. So you don't have to worry about it, men or women. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. So the thing is, in soy, you have what's called phytoestrogens. And these phytoestrogens, what we've discovered is that these phytoestrogens attach to a different estrogen site. So there's an alpha and beta estrogen receptor sites. So what happens, the alpha receptor sites are the ones that the animal estrogens attach to, and that induces the formation of cancer, whereas the beta estrogen sites, so those beta estrogen sites are where the phytoestrogens attach, and what those do is they actually block the alpha estrogen site. So it's really amazing how that all works. So plant soy is fabulous. I mean, Nehemiah Delgado is a bodybuilder. I mean, he has soy all the time. It's great. So there's no problem for men having soy in their diet. Let's see. Okay. All right, let's see. People on all sides of the political spectrum need to get rid of resentment. I agree. Everyone needs to get rid of resentment. It doesn't matter what political spectrum you are. It's everyone needs to get rid of resentment. We all need to be happy. We do. We should be all happy. I mean, it really is important. So I'm going to do a webinar. I'm going to create a new webinar. It's called The Pursuit of Happiness. The Pursuit of Happiness. I'm so thrilled. I'm going to be putting this all together. It's going to be really great. Let's see. The next 12-week group program starts in June. June 5th and 6th. It starts then. It's awesome. Okay, let's see. All right. Okay, yes, you're going to get all the resources in the email. You're going to get all of that. Don't worry. If you registered, you're going to get it all automatically. Let's see. Any comments on soy sauce versus liquid aminos? I don't know. I don't really use soy sauce to speak of. And, you know, I don't know exactly what they put in it because I think it's got a lot of sodium in it. And then liquid aminos, I'm not sure. I've never really used that much anyway. Do the research. All right. George, you're a smart guy. All right. So go ahead, read the labels. All right. Do that. Okay. Do that. Let's see. An opinion on monk fruit extract. No, I don't have any opinion on it. I don't even know about that at all. So I can't give you an opinion. Okay. So I don't know to what degree is an extract, what's in it, what's contained in it. So I can't tell you. All right. Extracts, the tricky part about extracts, here's a generalized comment about that. Extracts sometimes can be helpful, sometimes can actually stimulate a sympathetic response. So it depends. So you have to look at it very, very carefully. So you want to look at that. Let's see. Okay, so that's more of a comment. Let's see. All right, let's see. Okay. Do I have any opinions about nutritional yeast? Fabulous. I use it all the time. It's great. All right, use it. It's fantastic. I use it as part of making my fabulous, delicious salad dressing. Ooh, I use nutritional yeast and eggplant hummus and chipotle black beans, and it's fantastic. It's great. Okay, let's see. Yes, soy comes from soybeans. Yes, edamame. Yes, okay, very good. Let's see. Someone has seen frankincense and pain remedies at Walgreens. Yeah, what we're looking at in lifestyle medicine is not remedies and treatments. There are plenty of those around. There's all kinds of things like treatments and remedies. But what we're looking at is being able to master the major aspects of lifestyle to really go there. Let's see. What is my sense of curing cancer with right behaviors versus Western medical interventions? Well, I mean, this is what we've been talking about. I mean, we're looking at being able to recognize that the cancer itself is an indicator light. It's an indicator light that we need to make a change in our lifestyle. And if we really make those changes in our lifestyles and our behaviors, then we can start to right the ship and we can move more into the parasympathetic state, and then the body can heal itself. And that's the most beautiful thing. That's the most beautiful option that we have. It's much better than chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery. It's much better than those options. And I mean, I've seen far too many people suffer with those typical Western medical interventions. So I think it's a much better approach. Now, some people choose to combine the two. That's fine. That's their choice. I mean, everyone has to make that choice for themselves. But I know that using lifestyle medicine approach really makes a powerful and positive difference. So being able to do that. All right, great. I think I've gone through all the questions. If I missed something, I apologize. But if there are any other questions, unmute yourself. You guys are great. You're awesome. Amazing. Any other questions at all? Anything at all? Whew. You got me talking about 150 miles per hour.
I have a question.
Yes, yes.
I saw that somebody asked about monk fruit, and I heard only part of what you said about stevia. So I wanted to know what your answer was to that.
To stevia or the monk fruit?
Both.
Okay, so someone asked me about the monk fruit extract. I don't know about that. So I suggested to George that he check out the labels, or I think it was George. So check it out and figure out what's actually in that. But the tricky part about any extract is that sometimes it can induce a sympathetic response in a person, and sometimes it can introduce a parasympathetic response. So it boils down to the central nervous system. Now, stevia is another situation. Now, it's an herb and it's perfectly healthy, but the problem with stevia, it's so sweet. A small amount is so ridiculously sweet. It's amazing. Now, the problem that we have is in this culture is that we're addicted to sweetness. We get really addicted to it. And we get addicted to the sugar very, very early in our lives. I mean, children get addicted very young. And so then what happens is that triggers on the hippocampus. So I showed the brain graphs about how it actually triggers the hippocampus stronger than cocaine. So don't go to the cocaine, remember that. So the thing is, what we want to be able to do is not satisfy that. We want to diminish that. So if you want to transition from sugar to not needing anything at all, stevia can be a good transition, and you can do that. And the problem with it, it's so sweet, and even a small amount can actually really trigger the hippocampus a lot. So it's still feeding into that mechanism at the central nervous system level. So, and that's why a natural alternative that I think is really great is the date sugar, because the date sugar is a whole food. It's a whole food, so it's not going to trigger that sympathetic response, which is really great. So that's a nice thing. So I'd rather go with that. To me, that's a better alternative. So, all
Hello.
right. Party, yes.
Hi. So
Hi.
about the oils, you say using of oils for cooking.
Yeah.
You say no oil at all, any type of oil?
Correct. No oil. No oil, doesn't matter what kind. No oil, and you can cook without it. I'm going to send you the email. You can absolutely go without oil. It's absolutely amazing, because remember, oil contributes to that oil slick inside the cells. Inside the cells. So we want to not have that oil slick inside the cells. That's what contributes to suffocation of the cells, distress of the cells. So let's not abuse the body with more of that. We don't need to do that. It's not necessary. And when you think about it, oil is a processed food. It's a processed food. Are there any trees, Pari, just tell me, are there any trees, have you noticed any trees on the face of the planet that have bottles of oil hanging from their branches? Right? Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. I met a man a few years ago. He actually attended some of my seminars. He grew up in Italy, in Sardinia, actually. And he grew up on an olive oil farm. So he learned how to manufacture olive oil. He explained the whole process because he explained the whole process of manufacturing extra virgin olive oil. And you know what he said afterwards? He said, there's no way I'm putting that in my body.
Because he stepped on him.
And back to the monk fruit
Yeah.
that Nancy was asking about. I have not seen monk fruit without erythritol in it.
Okay. I don't know. Is it that the extract? Somebody asked about the extract. Monk fruit extract.
Yeah, monk fruit, you can't buy just monk fruit extract. It has erythritol in it.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It has a chemical compound that they're adding to it. I have not seen just monk fruit.
Okay, so they're adding an all. An all, it happens to be an alcohol.
Yes, yes.
So that's what they're adding to it. Okay, not good. So that's not good either. Okay, so you just have to read the ingredients and you'll figure it out. Figure it out. Okay, very good. Let's see, what else? Avocados are a healthy fat. Olives are a healthy fat. Nuts, seeds, olive oil comes from olives. We do need healthy fats. Okay, so here's the deal. There's a difference between unrefined, unprocessed fats with the fiber attached and everything, all the nutrients attached, as opposed to the extract. Look, coca leaves are perfectly healthy to make a coca tea. Perfectly healthy, not a problem. You can make coca tea and drink it and be completely safe. Or you can get the extract from coca leaves and make cocaine, which could kill you. Okay, just because it comes from it, just because the olive oil comes from olives, doesn't mean that the olive oil is healthy for you. No, just because the cocaine comes from the coca leaves doesn't mean that the cocaine is healthy for you. Just because the caffeine comes from tea leaves doesn't mean that the caffeine is healthy for you. Just because the nicotine comes from tobacco leaves doesn't mean that the tobacco leaves are healthy for you. Nicotine is healthy for you. No, it's not. So it's chemistry. You have to know your chemistry. Okay, so that's what you have to do. All right, very good. Okay, any other questions? I'm going to wrap it up here because I have another presentation to go to. Can you imagine that? So I'm going to keep going. Thank you.
I have one question.
Quick, Linda.
The question is back to B12.
B12.
I've looked at so many B12s for sublingual, under the tongue, whatever, and all of them were made with either stevia or xylitol. Do we have a preference one over the other? Is it better to get a pill? I mean, what do you suggest?
Okay, just find one that works with the most pure ingredients you can find. I don't have it available for me right now. Otherwise, I'd show you. Send me an email. I'll send you a picture of what I take. Okay, great question. I just don't have the answer for you. I looked at the ingredients. I forget the manufacturer. I get it at Elliott's Natural Foods, and it's really good. So that's what I get.
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks, doctor.
You bet. Okay, all right. Thank you all. I'm going to wrap it up now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me and trying to make a difference on the face of this planet. All right, really thank you. It means a big deal to me. It's wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a participant in this. My request is that you please share this information. Share it widely, share it freely. All right, I'm giving this away for free. All right, so share all of this information with everyone you know. There are people that you could absolutely save their lives by sharing this information. So please do that. Next week is going to be optimal athletic performance at any age. At any age. All right, it's going to be awesome. All right, great stuff, lots of good stuff. So stay tuned. I've got more webinars coming up at the end in April as well. I'm going to be announcing those pretty soon. Great stuff. Check out my programs. If you're interested, let me know. Have a fabulous time and live long and prosper. Okay, remember that one. Spock was right. Okay.
How do we find out about you?